Previously on agentpalmer.com, Black Widow Red Vengeance picks up from Forever Red and then goes further, The Mandolin Rocks, a playlist, and I've been not so subtly encouraging Becca to start Abridged. This is the Palmer Files, episode 39, with Lauren Beck, an artist, creator, teacher, and entrepreneur who is defined as much by the decisions she has made as the things she creates. We discuss what makes an artist, nonlinear paths, being a creative, determining value, myths, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show. Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 39th episode is Lauren Beck, a lettering artist and illustrator who operates Ren and Ink. Not all artists or creators are entrepreneurs, but Lauren's story is one that not only resonates with me, her journey is one that many of us undertake, following a passion, following a dream, looking to create something that will be fulfilling on a certain level. What you are about to hear is a conversation that Lauren and I have about just those things. We discuss the journey she has taken to arrive where she is. We discuss being creators, the myths of a linear path, making a hobby a career or not, and so much more. Things are both light and deep. Some things may sit long with you, while others may be as momentary as just hearing them right now. But this is a conversation I'm excited to share with you. Before we get going, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or after, you can tweet me at Agent Palmer and the show at The Palmer Files. You can find Lauren on Instagram at instagram.com/ren.and.ink or on Facebook at facebook.com/ren.and.ink, or you can look up Ren and Ink. Plus, I encourage you to visit renandink.com, that's RENANDINK.com, to peruse her creations. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to the show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's create something cool. Lauren, it's calligraphy, it's digital design, it's like glass etching, it's illustration. Are you just an artist? Like, do I get, like, if I was going to say, like, just you're an artist, or is it like I'm an illustrator, or like, how do you define yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Well, I think I wear a lot of hats, and above anything, I'm always seeking clarity with what I want out of this. I feel like I probably would be an illustrator, but I illustrate words primarily.
Sure.
And florals too. Lots of flowers.
Is artist too broad? Like, is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a lot of trouble calling myself an artist for a really long time, and I've heard that from some other people too.
The imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because artist, I think we've been brought up, most people anyway, have been brought up to think an artist has to paint or have some sort of prominence, right? Or speak on this higher level and convey emotion through their brushstrokes. And, you know, we hold artists.
Did you go to art school? Like,
I went to school for art education.
Okay, because so for me, right, like I went to Keystone College, but not for art, right? So I was around a lot of art students, and I think they would have a similar outlook to you. To me, like, an artist is an artist, right? Like, there's an artiste, which is what you're talking about, but then there's an artist who's like just somebody who emotes through art, I guess, as just a general sense. Like
Yeah.
you're talking about like Rembrandt, right? Like,
Yeah.
and in that light, I don't think anybody holds up, right? But you're an artist in the same way that like our mutual friend Ryan Lynn is an artist, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I changed my title on who I'm talking to,
Okay,
actually.
that's fine.
But I believe myself to be a creative. So I feel like I have this thing where I just want to make stuff and I just want to try things that are artistic, but I have trouble calling myself an artist a lot of times. But I do usually use that term because people don't understand what a hand letterer is or an engraver even, or a calligrapher, even though you think that's a very, I mean, at least I do. I think that's a very basic term. A lot of people don't know what that is. So I will call myself an artist just to generalize everything.
I mean, if we go back, right? Like, was this always in the cards? Like, was being, I'm not going to say an artist, but like, was being in art always the thing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. For me, it was. I like to kind of tell this little story about how my mom always knew that I was going to be an artist when I think I was like kindergarten or even younger, probably preschool. And I was drawing a picture of a lemonade stand with like little kids in it, selling lemonade. And she said she knew it was something special when I drew the lemonade glass with ice cubes and a straw. And she's like, I looked at that and I thought, yep, this girl is like an artist. Like that's her. So that was kind of always in me. I always loved art. Every material I wanted to try. And from a very young age, I thought I was going to be a teacher. So that was my passion, was to teach art and to learn every medium under the sun so I could teach someone.
And obviously you said you went to school for art education. So you've been on the other side, you've done it. Has it been as fulfilling as you expected?
So my path is a little rocky.
Okay.
As a kid, I had this very clear image of me being this like one of those teachers where everyone loves the person and comes back after college and visits high school or whatever it is, right? And they're like, oh, you were my favorite teacher. And oh, when you said this thing, you really inspired me. And I just pictured myself being that teacher. And when that didn't happen, I graduated with this degree and I was like ready to do it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to knock this out of the park. And to kind of fall flat, it really kind of destroyed me. And I didn't do art for a really long time because of that. So my image of myself was kind of destroyed.
So what do you do in that black period? Because I mean, the art never left. I mean, you got back into it, I guess, well enough, but like, what's the black period like?
Wow. Well, a lot of confusion, a lot of leaning on like maybe my customer service skills, or thinking that like, well, this didn't happen for me. Like what I always envisioned for myself didn't happen for me. So what can I do? Maybe not what I want to do, but what can I do? Right. And I think that's probably a lot of people's stories.
I mean, I got out of college and was in retail for 7 years. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't know, like at a certain point, it wasn't like my vision of myself had shattered. It was just, I can't see out of this hole. Like you're just in retail, and at a certain point, like you're just like, well, this is my life now. Like the holidays start before Halloween, and then it's return season, and then like you get into the retail mindset, which is a different calendar than a normal calendar, and you just go like, well, what's it like? And then I got the first real job, and I went, well, like people don't work in this is great. Yeah. Like, oh, a desk job,
like Monday to Friday. And you get a weekend?
9 to 5. What? You don't have to work at night or overnight, or it's just,
yeah.
And I'm, I had that job and then another job and then no job. And I still, like, I envy you because while your path might not have been linear, right? You had that thing that you wanted to do and you got there. I never had that vision, right? Like I went to school and went liberal arts, let's get an associate's. And then, oh, well, I'm close enough to a communications degree, communications bachelor's. Like, it was never like growing up, I wanted to be this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, it was all derailed by the time I hit high school anyway. So it was just like, what do I do?
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
And it's rough, but then we get out. Like, I've obviously found my passions. I don't know if they're careers necessarily, which I think is and you own your own business now, and we'll get to that, but like there's a difference, right, between having a hobby and something you enjoy and then having a job. And then there's always like this very like grand divide between joining the two. Like, it's you make,
I like how you said that.
like,
Yeah.
you engrave amazingly, time to sell.
Thanks.
Like, there's such a divide between, yes, I do engrave great, but you want me to sell this? Like, there's such a mental jump for that. Like, what was, like, for you, was it easy to jump? Like, could you get there?
Yeah. So many thoughts here. I mean, so I was kind of going along in this like gray area, like you were talking about, how you have a job, right? And you're making money to live.
Sure.
But I think it came to a point, and this was always something that like I didn't plan to do hand lettering or design or illustration for that matter when I was younger. I definitely did not plan on getting here. This is sort of like the path that I took, and something came out of me that like I really can't explain. But and I have to laugh because if you would have told me back when I was a kid, this is what you would be doing, I'd be like, what? Is that even a thing? Like, I don't think that's a thing.
Well, I think those are the most exciting journeys, right? Because like, I mean, I don't think there's a part of a younger me that like just looking at my hobbies, like one day you're going to write articles for the internet and talk and put it out there in audio form. Like I'm going to do what?
Yeah.
Like that
me
for fun.
Talking in front of an audience?
But for fun.
Through like a not podcast? What's that?
Not for money, for fun.
Right.
Like and I think there's a portion of my younger life where if you had said you're going to write for fun, and I would have been like, no, only if somebody makes me. I don't want.
Yeah. I know. Well, my one daughter, she's 8, and the other day she looked at me and she goes, Mom, you know what I'm going to do when I'm older? And I said, what, hun? Thinking, oh, teacher or something. She goes, I'm going to do spin art for a job. And like my gut reaction was like, honey, that's not a job. But I kind of paused and was like, hey, maybe spin art, you know what spin art is, right? Those like tables you drip stuff on, right? Yeah. It's like, well, maybe it could be a job. Who knows? Like if you told me I'd be like drawing letters and, making designs on some like glass computer thing, I'd be like, no way. So who knows? It's
so, I feel like the more we look around, especially now in a more, I don't know, personal conscious, like you hear the whole like work-life balance thing and people spend a lot more time on what I want to do as opposed to what I have to do. And you and I are of that generation, like that shoulder generation where we grew up being like, well, you're going to go to college and then you're going to get a job. Like that's, and the generation like directly behind us is like, well, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to find myself. And like, we're in between going like, well, I want to do what they're doing. Why was I told and ingrained to like, no, you're going to go to college and get a job?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. What are you, 83 were you born?
Yeah.
83? Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I agree. In fact, like I kind of, I know where my parents definitely said that to me. They said, find a school district, be a teacher, first of all, which I was already like sold on the whole teacher thing. I
Okay.
love kids. I love teaching, like cool. But they said, find a district and you can be there for the rest of your life and retire and be happy. And I don't doubt that that can happen for a lot of people. But I think that we're fed this, I don't want to call it a lie. It's not a lie, but we're fed this dream where we choose one thing and we're that thing and it fulfills us the rest of our lives.
Yeah,
And
no.
I don't know anyone who has done that and felt fulfilled.
Well,
in fact, people that I am finding that people hit around their 30s and they start to almost hate their day job or hate the career path that they took and look for new challenges. And honestly, I think that's a very humanistic quality, is to like look for those challenges, and whether it be creative or, you know, maybe it's even a challenge in your own career path. But I personally feel like the newness and the learning is like such a deep-seated like passion for me. And I see a lot of like, you know, my friends and family members going through this, that they're looking for that passion that like kind of itches their creative itch, and then they also are making money with it. And as long as you can find that balance, you know, it's a great thing.
I've been one of those, because we're elder millennials technically, and
Elders, yes.
I like to say that I'm not, but like I mean
Same.
we owe a lot to that generation though, because they're the ones that were like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do, not what's expected of me. And I think that it's not. You were close. I think it was an expectation. I don't know. It wasn't necessarily a lie. It wasn't and it wasn't devious. It was just like, you're going to go to school, you're going to get a job. And that was the expectation, because that's the way it always was. And you turn around and look at the people behind us and they're like, well, I don't have to go to school. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Like,
yeah.
I could have that tuition and invest it in myself. Like,
right. Well, how do you feel about the school thing though? Not to interrupt your thought.
No,
but...
I have an associate's degree and I have a bachelor's degree. And if you were to take them away from me, nothing in my life would really change. I have a very, very, very good friend that I met in college. He's the only thing I lose if you take college away from me. Like, my first job, my first non-retail job I got because I learned to code, and I taught that myself after college because I was a communications major. And the writing I did in college was not necessarily anything more than what I was already doing. Like, if you had said, don't go to school, just learn to just write more and practice. Like, so I didn't get anything, right? Like, I have the degrees, but if you take that away, I don't think much leaves me. So I look at it like, well, and you know what? I've been unemployed for a year, spending all this time trying to figure out like what's next. And occasionally I talk to people that are like, well, why don't you go back to school? And it's, I'm, and maybe it's denial, right? Or a put down. And I mean, nothing against my alma mater and those people, but like, if I don't feel like I got to where I am because of school, what's another round gonna do?
Right.
I turned myself into a voracious reader, so I'm learning other things. I can pick up a book and read about whatever topic I want at any time.
Yeah.
I'm challenging myself by reading new things, which is kind of like when people say like, well, take a class outside of your comfort zone. Well, read a book outside of your comfort. Like, I can do all of that for the cost of a book and not tuition.
Sure.
So maybe I've become too cynical. Like, maybe I've gone the other way and it's going to take a little time for me to come back to it. But I don't know. I look back on it a little questioning. Like, if I had, I don't know if I would change anything. I mean, that's the whole, like, you know, but
that's a big question, isn't it?
Well,
what would you change?
Yeah.
Do you regret anything? And yeah, I think it's a great question to ask yourself though, is like, I think a lot of people are stuck in the, well, what's my next move? Like, well, maybe I have this interest in doing this, and what's my next move, right? So if you're talking about someone who perhaps is, so like me, I was feeling like I was working and I was doing fine, things I could do.
Sure.
In fact, I was doing them pretty well. And I felt like I would go to work and I would work really hard, but something really came over me that was like, okay, where do I see myself, as an older human? Where do I see myself? Like, what do I want to accomplish? And once I turned like inward a little bit and kind of started asking myself those questions, then I had new answers, right? So I remember being at work one day, and I worked for like a really nice person and a really great team, and I was happy. I was doing my work, but one day I looked at myself and I was working super hard that day. I think I had like sent a gazillion emails and like was, planning some kind of event or something, and I was working really hard. And I stopped for a second. I was like, if I worked half as hard for myself, as hard as I'm doing right now, if I did half this work for myself, like I'm pretty darn sure that I would succeed. And I think it took that moment to be like, huh. And it was like giving myself that permission to like think in that way. So like if anyone needs to hear this, like give yourself permission to like think in that way, or to maybe wonder, like, what if I did do this thing that I'm passionate about? What if I did kind of take the road less traveled, and maybe made like my family and friends kind of wonder, like, what's up with her? What's up with him? Like, like give yourself permission to try it and maybe fail, because that was like not in my vocabulary. It's like failure.
Well,
right?
I will say, because I get the question all the time, like, why don't you just do Palmer like full time? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely put a lot of work into it, but this is, I think there's a part of me that understands it all. Some of it changes. Like, I agree with everything you're saying, but I think you have to find that right thing to work towards. For me, it's not Palmer. Like this is setting me up for retirement. Like I can come back and do this. I can do this in my spare time, and then when I get old and retire, I can continue doing this as long as there's an audience, right? I don't know if this is my full-time gig, right?
Sure.
I can put everything into it, but I don't know if it's that. So I think if I could find that thing, absolutely, you're right, because I look around, I see the same thing you do. People that are working 9 to 5, but go in a little early, skip lunch, and stay late. Like you're clearly working more than you're being paid. Like especially if your salary and that extra time before work, that extra time you work during lunch or over lunch, and the extra time you put in at night or taking some work home with you or on the week, like you don't get paid for that. Yeah. So if you put that into yourself, like absolutely. And I'm interviewing with people that are asking me about work-life balance, and I just say, like, I think for me, it's work-hobby balance, because I want to continue to do this stuff. It's fun, but I know this doesn't pay the bills.
Well, I think you're realizing, and I have this too, where the older you get, the more you realize how valuable your time is.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing something that you at least enjoy, and not everything has to turn into a career. That's something I struggle with.
People need to, I mean, for everything else that people have needed to hear tonight, like that's something people need to hear. Like, yes, I can do this. This doesn't need to be my career. And
no, it doesn't.
That statement took me a while, because I had people, what happens is we turn to the elders, whoever our elders are, like our big brother or that friend that just happens to always be smarter than you or just right? Like, or your grandparents or your uncle or your whatever. And then they turn around and go, well, why don't you do this as a career? And like, there's a lot of like internal, I want to say fortitude to be like, no, this is something I enjoy, but this isn't my career.
Yeah.
And that's not something you just come to. Like somebody doesn't go like, why don't you do that as a career? And you just be like, well, that's like, you have to, that's an internalization that takes,
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's taken me. Like, I don't know when that started. I know the conversation's been around. If it feels like that conversation's been around me forever. Like, have you like
you should do this?
Yeah.
Like, you know what you should do? You should do this. Like,
yeah. Well, I've
the
been
shitty shoulds. Yeah.
Well, I've been the blog is I don't know 10, 11 years old, 10 years old or something like that. So
yeah.
Probably a year into doing that, I started hearing, well, you're not making any money off of it. You know, and that's not saying make it a career, but like, this is something I'm putting my passion into. And all I'm hearing from people around me is, are you making any money with that yet?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it turned 5. Are you making money? I started a podcast. Are you making any money on the other thing yet? Like, just for this constant, like, and it's like, I don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of doubt out there too, and people can't really define something or they don't have an example in their head. Right. So, I remember when I started deciding, like, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to start doing lettering and calligraphy at the time, like more bridal calligraphy and signage and things like that. And I remember, trying to explain it to people, like what I do. And when people don't really understand your world, they get very confused. And I remember one person saying to me, oh, wait, like you can make money doing that? And me being like, yeah, I mean, that's the plan. So, it's interesting. This whole idea of like taking your passion and turning it into a career as like an entrepreneur, but then also like allowing yourself to have something that's creative or your passion that it doesn't have to make you a cent. And I think finding those balances is really important.
Well, I'll tell you my big fear is I'm a workaholic by nature. So, and I don't tell people that, like in interviews, I'm not like, yeah, I'm a workaholic. Like you'll just find that out. Right. But I'm also trying to get better at it. And I think that having, this is a lateral move, right? I was a workaholic for my 9 to 5 when I had one. And the only way I got away from not working 80 hours at that job was having a hobby like this that I could pour into, right? So it's kind of a lateral move, although now I'm doing something for me as opposed to something for somebody else. If this became my full-time gig, like I would never stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't stop. I don't. I really don't. Even when I'm like about to go to sleep, my brain is still going with something that I'm working through in my mind.
It's in hindsight, right? Like, I mean, I have these conversations and I do to edit and then I listen to it and then I put it out. And I remember listening back to the Ryan Lynn episode and him talking about like going down and working and then getting the mail and spending some time with the kids and having dinner and then going back to work. And I like, it didn't hit me in the moment, but it hit me like as I was editing it going like, well, that's what I do. Like that,
right.
That's what I do. Like and it's, I understand like it's on him just like it's on you or it's, this is on me. And, there's a fear there that unless you have like a super strong partner who's going to be like, no, take some time. Like it's on you. And like my partner's respectful. She's like, no, do your thing. And so I don't know if they would ever, and she enjoy like she's one of my biggest fans too. So I don't think she's going to be like, no, it's time to stop now.
Right.
And so that's on me. And I can't do that when I was working for someone else. If I'm working for myself and enjoying it, like I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're in the groove too, right? Where you're like working something out and you're like, I just gotta work this out. I just gotta do it and keep going.
That's I see. And I feel like that's an artistic it's a creative thing because I feel like there's a lot of people that are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like I know accountants who don't understand the groove, but like I do. Like if I'm writing,
Yeah.
and I get into it, like don't get in my way until I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, you write a lot, and I have this conversation with a lot of creative friends of mine about like sometimes we just do nothing. Like it sounds stupid. Okay, let me back it up. Hold on. So it's not that we're not doing nothing, but sometimes we don't make much progress that any normal person would look at us and be like, "Hey, come on." Like if I had a boss swing in and be like, "Yo, get back to work." But I'm doing the work. It's just like I'm working something out of my brain, or I'm sketching junk on a piece of paper, or I'm just like popping around the internet to find like the correct image that like I can really like sink into my brain in order to like put me in the right mood for this piece. Like all of those things take so much time, but someone who is not creative can look in, and I think everyone's creative in their own right, for sure. But someone who doesn't understand that like flow or that mindset where you literally can't stop, they would be like, they're doing nothing. Like, what the hell are they doing? They're just sitting there.
I mean, I'm guiltiest of it in the shower, where
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. For sure.
and I don't know what it is about the shower where my mind just wanders, but there are times when I'm in there for like 20 minutes, and it's not because like I'm dirty. It's because like I got 5 minutes in, like I started working on something in my brain, and like it was a thread, and I spend the next 15 minutes just standing in the shower trying to mentally figure out that thread, and like everything in my being, physical and mental, is just like, hold on, I can get this, like this outline that I can write down later, or like this start to this next blog post, or like the inspiration to start an intro, like, or an out, like just this piece, and you're just chasing it. Now to the outside world, I'm just in the shower for 20 minutes, right? Like, and even at that, if you had seen me in the shower, I'm just standing. Like, it's just like, did he fall asleep in there? Like, what's going on? But but I understand that. Like, it's just, it's the same thing as like staring at a blank screen or a canvas for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where to start. It's not, and it's a process. And when I start, I will not have started. Like, I could not have just sat down and started. I sat down 20 minutes ago. I'm close. I'll
get in there.
I'll figure it out.
Give me a sec. You know why you think of these things in the shower though, right? Do you know why?
No, because I'm standing?
Because you're like basically in like this chamber where you're just like, you have nothing around you, no distractions. You're on autopilot. So your brain goes to this place where just like the magic happens, and you're like, whoa, where'd that thought come from? Right?
See, and that reminds me of, the premise, one of the premises, not the premise, but one of the things I learned about, like, from there's a book that Clive Barker wrote called The Great and Secret Show, and it's...
Oh my God, wait, Clive Barker?
Yeah.
Did he write The Thief of Always?
Yes, he did.
Oh my God, I loved that book as a kid. That's the only way I know his name.
That's first of all, that's a fantastic book. But the Great and Secret Show is quote unquote the book of the art part 1. And in the very beginning, they talk about he talks about one of the characters. And look, I loved this book so much, I actually haven't reread it because I'm afraid to tarnish the vision I have of the book. But he talks about being in the post office. Mm-hmm. And just working in the post office because it was mindless, and he could think about bigger picture things, right? And I think that I'm surrounded by stimuli, like the phone that I always have with me, right? Like I'm talking to you, but I have 2 screens flanking me, like 3 technically, right? And so I got a bookshelf in front of me with lots of like it's just. It's constant. So that's probably the blankest, most mundane.
Yeah, it's a chamber.
Yeah.
It's like literally you're locked in this, like you have to be there because you must bathe your body, right? Because we're humans. Like I tell my children, they don't want to hear it, but like you're a human, you need to bathe your body. But it's your think tank. It's like you're stuck there and your brain's like, well, may as well think since I'm here, right?
Well, except I think that for most of us, we're always thinking, especially creatives. Like
Yeah.
I know that I've gotten in trouble at like social events for being antisocial, but like, no, I went down a thread in my own head. I'm just sitting here just ignoring everyone else, like not on purpose, but just it happened.
Yeah.
Like
You're thinking. Yeah.
Thinking's underrated. I will say that. Like
Agreed.
I feel like
Agreed.
there's a stigma where like, you know what, I make it like a similarity to showing your work in math, right? Like I can't show my thinking work, right? Like
you sound like my sixth grader.
what's 4 times 3? It's 12. Show your work. No, it's 12. Like it's magic. I don't know how I got there. It's 12. Like and
you would not do well with math nowadays. It's way different.
Do I have to show my work now?
Oh, you have to show it like 6 different ways that you got there.
Nope.
And if you don't understand 5 of the ways, but you understand 1 of the ways, then you didn't get all the credit.
Oh man.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. What is that called?
What, new math?
Yeah, there's a name for it and I can't think of it.
Is it Common Core? Is that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
No, I've heard other friends with kids talk about it.
Oh,
They're
it's
like,
ridiculous.
you wouldn't know how to do math anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm like, math has been as old. Math goes back to the Egyptians. It can't have changed that much.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's get back for a moment.
Okay.
When you start the business,
Yeah.
what's the thought process like? Okay. I'm gonna do calligraphy, and are you like, because you quit your job for this, right? So it's like
I did, but it was a couple of years that I was doing lettering.
Okay.
So I started simply by a friend. Okay, well, let me back up a bit. So I basically didn't do art for like 10 years.
This is during the Black
really
period, right?
this.
Like you know,
this is the dark times.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean, there were great times. I had some babies. It's like buying a house and doing all like the
adult
suburban
things.
white mom stuff.
Sure.
But it's good life. But I basically convinced myself that I didn't really have to be happy with my career as long as I was like happy at home, right? Which
that's a very like I hear
we
that.
Get into that, right?
We don't have to get into it. I just know it's a very common thing. Like as long as I'm happy in one thing, and most people, as long as I'm very happy at home, the work life can be it
It could be a job that you can leave, right? Yeah. And like I still think that that's okay for some people, but I definitely always had this creative just like this creative mode that I would get into, and I would allow myself to go into it every once in a while in my own space, like making the most craziest Halloween costumes for my kids or something.
All right. So during those 10 years, like you do have an outlet, but it's not constant, and it's just kind of like when
it's doodling for my children. It's, crafting something for someone's gift or like little things here and there where it still kind of comes out of me like at these weird moments, but I never thought I could ever be awesome at one thing. Definitely not. So, I had a friend actually send me like a Skillshare link, and we were talking about learning online, right? And Skillshare. I don't know if you're familiar with the platform.
I know about it because I almost went down that road, and I was like, I don't need to prove to somebody else I'm good at this. That was my.
Oh, you mean you were almost an instructor on Skillshare?
Yeah. I was just like, I don't. No, I'm. Like I know I'm good at it. That's good enough.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, my friend sent me a Skillshare link to take a class on hand lettering, and at the time I didn't know what the hell that was. It's like. What is this? But I watched the little preview, and the artist, she's from Philly, Mary Kate McDevitt, and she's younger than I am, so like there's that thing of like, well, she's a child. Like, no, she's not that much younger, but do you know what I mean? Like that feeling of like, what? Gosh, should I learn from someone who's younger than me? It was weird at the time.
I'll give you. I'll interject. I still think that there's a part of me that has to like. I need to get over that. Like I know there's younger people than me that can teach me stuff.
There are.
If you seem younger than me, you could be older than me. If you seem younger than me, I'm a little skeptical that you have anything to teach me.
Yeah, I had that going on for sure. But I saw her draw and I was like, oh my God, she draws like me. Like I don't have to prove anything. Like I just drew something the other day that like kind of looked like what she's doing. So I took this class and she explained that she draws letters. And I was like, letters? What the hell? Why would I draw a letter? And but I tried it and I stinking loved it. I started getting obsessed. And I think I kind of broke it down in my brain. I think it's like the idea of these letters. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I used to like draw stuff on my notebooks and make like bubble letters and block letters and, you know, all different like words and stuff.
Block letters. I don't have, I mean, I'm jealous of anyone with any like I'm super jealous of anybody that can think of an image and put it on paper because I lack that translation.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, like if someone said to draw out your name in like block letters, you'd be like, yo, I can do that.
That I can actually.
What my letters look like, and I can make them funky, right? It's a little less intimidating than me saying, hey, why don't you go draw like, you know, a flower? Like draw a flower for me. That's a little more intimidating.
No,
than,
I mean, you're going to get a flower and a stick figure. Like, come on. Like, it's...
Yeah. But there was something about this like idea of like, well, I know what letters look like. And I have really great handwriting because I mean, I did. No, just kidding. Well, no, I always loved my handwriting for some reason.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
Your handwriting.
Yeah, my handwriting.
Is it flowing? Is it small? Because like I come from two parents, one that has like crisp, neat print, and one that has cursive that is almost illegible unless you've been reading it for years.
Oh yeah, that's so funny.
And my handwriting is just atrocious. It's neither.
Yeah, I love that. Well, yeah, handwriting. I wish I could meet one of those like handwriting analysts. Like, what? There's like a name for them.
No, well, I think it's like right? Just like handwriting.
Analyst.
Yeah, I think.
I'm stuck on the word now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a person that does that.
But your handwriting,
they can tell you like, oh, you have problems with your left knee, don't you? Because your Y makes this weird curly thing. There's like, that's a thing, right?
I mean, it is. I just, but are you okay, like a small, like, because I know there's those people that
I write really large and loopy and yeah, my handwriting is actually junk compared to my lettering because I've kind of like not cared about my handwriting so much nowadays that I'm older. I'm like, whatever, just writing a grocery list. But like, there's a difference. And a lot of people don't know this. I teach this in my classes is like, there's a difference between penmanship where you just write something and, calligraphy or lettering. And the difference is this like penmanship, you're just writing all in one fell swoop. And calligraphy or lettering is when you're focusing on each one of the letters and how they create basically artwork together, right? So how they flow together, the negative and the positive space. So you can really dissect letters and not necessarily like typography, but like by drawing them and creating shapes and actually illustrating the letters, you can like really it's like an endless possibility to create like an A.
But it's also that, see, to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Untrained word guy.
All of this sounds like babble.
No, that sounds like graphic design to me.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously not maybe less symbol, more letters, but and more characters, I guess. But it just sounds like graphic design to me.
Yeah.
A portion of it, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I talk to graphic designers and I understand negative space and even like leading and the vertical and the I understand that, and that's but and this is where I think you what you're talking about is set apart, like the detail on one letter.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's a labor of love. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. That's like such it's so time consuming.
It is. Yeah. 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 It's this like laser focus you have to have. And it's just interesting to me, just to how you can completely change like a word. You can completely change how it looks and how it's
You can change
how
the
you
perception
basically
based.
digest the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. How it speaks to you, and not just reading the word, but how it's visually looking to you can put you in a different headspace. Like it can either look energetic or it can look kind of somber, or like maybe very pretty and like flourished and like fancy, right? Like all those things like are different. Like maybe even visually you're seeing that in front of your eyes right now, like how all of those things can look differently. And you can say that with art too, but just this idea of taking like a word or letters and changing them up so much in order to visually change a mood or change what that letter says or what that word says. It just like blew my mind when I started thinking about these things in a different way. It was one of those moments where you're like, how did I not see this before? Like my eyes have been open and I can't unsee this now, right? So once I started really diving into that and like putting my artwork out there, I literally created an Instagram account in order to like start putting my lettering out there, because there was this contest that was running. I don't even know how I found it. I think I just started Googling stuff. And they were like, well, each month we're running this contest. And if you letter a phrase each day and like enter into this contest and use this hashtag, like you might be a winner. Right. And I was like, oh my God, I could be a winner. And like never believing that I would. But I ended up at the end of the month, like winning this like prize. And I was like, damn, okay. So once I started doing that, like people were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this new stuff you're doing? Like you're drawing, but it's words and it's calligraphy and it's like all these things. So it sort of like just kind of came out of me. Like I was saying earlier, like something just like came out of me and I was like, gave myself permission to like try something. And I think the positive feedback where I don't necessarily care about what people think, but I think when you do hear something positive, it starts to like, it gives you this like this feeling of, oh, this is okay.
Sure.
It gives you
it's a reassurance.
Reassurance,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And you I don't want to jump, but I'm
No,
so
that's fine.
curious. How do you get to the glass etching from the?
Yeah,
Because I understand like the art.
Uh-huh.
We've covered the artistic journey a bit, but like
Right.
glass is a completely different medium than picking up a
It
pen.
is. Yeah. So I'll take you on that journey
Okay.
if you want to come along with me, friends. No. So first of all, I have to say that I am the type of person that like if I see something and I think I can do it, I try it.
Okay.
Like I'm like, I gotta figure this shit out. Like I gotta get the things to do this thing in order to prove to myself that I can do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I feel like you're probably sort of like that.
No, yeah. I mean, I was ready to start this podcast before I had a mixer. And I was just thinking about like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And then somebody sent me a mixer and was like, no, you're going to do this. And it was like, well, I got the tools now. I really have I have no reason not to. Like now I have all the tools. So yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. I think all creatives are like that.
I agree.
You want to challenge yourself to an extent.
Yep.
Like, and then when you get good at something, you want to get better at it.
Yeah, I want to get better, but I feel like I don't want to be the best. I never like want to be the best. I just want to always be like challenging myself. This is a weird thing about me. Like, I don't really care if I'm the best. Like, I don't want to be like internet famous doing anything because that's a lot of pressure, right?
That's true.
But
I
like,
just want to be
yeah,
better than I was last time, I guess.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So I decide I'm going to do this thing. I'm getting like some business, doing chalk signage, getting some digital work. Oh, well, actually, I didn't have my iPad at that time. So I guess I was just doing like, I don't know what I was doing, actually. I was getting clients, though.
Okay.
I'm sure that,
Sure.
yeah, this was
Yeah.
years ago. Um, and I'm doing this work, doing lettering and really not doing illustration at all, right? I was just drawing letters or doing calligraphy. And I'm like, okay, I really gotta, I think calligraphy sounds good to me. Like, I think if I say I'm a calligrapher,
Yep.
I think that's good. I think that's making money. I know exactly what that looks like. I know who my clients are, and I know I have the skills to do that.
And it's
So
less
I'm gonna be a
explanation
calligrapher.
for you for other people.
Right. Yes.
Because people know what that
I can say
is.
to someone, they're like, hey, what do you do? I'm a calligrapher. Like, that sounds good, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. So I made this decision. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to infiltrate the wedding community. Right. Well, it sounds like very devious, but like, no, that's where I'm going to find my clients is the wedding community. People are getting married every day. Like, no problem. So I started going down that road, making sure I was like top notch with my calligraphy. I knew it was what I was talking about. And, it's interesting how like you choose this path and you're like, okay, this is a career that I can define, but like you try on the shoes and they fit, but they just don't feel right.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that and I was like, I don't think I'm like this fancy girl. Like, I'm not like this, like, ooh, let me make all this fancy shit for your wedding. There's something about, and don't get me wrong, I have bridal clients today, you know what I mean? And I love them all and I get to do many different things for them. So I'm no knocking on anyone who's getting married. I don't seek them out anymore, but I will do bridal work because I do enjoy doing it. But I didn't want to like define myself as that.
Yeah. You want to do something more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the iPad started coming in. And once I got my hands on one of those and I could draw digitally, I was like in love. Like I was like, okay, I can do calligraphy, but I can also draw. And I also can do graphic design, which, I mean, that's so many different formats, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's just like, and once clients started understanding that, yeah, I can make this digitally and send you a file, they were like, okay, why wouldn't I love that, right? So that sort of, got me in that mode. But I really, I started doing all different types of lettering, diving into all different, like anything I wanted to learn. Like I even took a class on sign painting, which was amazing. I was like this weekend full of just like literal, like old school sign painting with a brush. And I learned a ton. So, all these different materials, I just needed to get my hands on them. And it was really when I was doing bridal work, I was doing sign painting, I had digital clients, and I was teaching, which is another thing I can talk forever about, that I was like, really like, what else can I do with this medium? That's like a niche.
Sure.
That like, I can start to see my work on something.
Okay. Yeah.
Not like a place card that's going to be thrown away the next day. Right.
Yeah.
It was that idea, that switch of my brain where I was like, what products can I create with this? And that's where I kind of found the etching, the engraving and I do it with a hand tool. So it was kind of cool that's sort of the path that I went, I tried many different things and I still do them today. I still use all those skills, but the engraving's a new thing.
But you have come kind of full circle then because you're teaching again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's exactly right.
So, I mean, big picture, I want to ask this because you are teaching, but you also have all these other things, right? So obviously you go back and before the teaching, and you tell your younger self, like, I'm going to be a calligrapher.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're like, what? But now that you've kind of got like the best of all worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still more, obviously there's still more to like discover, but like,
Sure.
have you reached that place where you're like, no, I'm good. Like I can explore at my own pace, but like if I don't explore for a couple months, I'm good. Like have you reached that?
So sort of. I'm finding clarity in all of these different skills that I've gained along the way. I'm finding clarity of what feels best to me and what feels most like me. And I really love engraving and I really love creating products. So I'm going to continue doing that and using my lettering and illustration skills with that. You know, that's something I'm definitely going to be continuing. But the teaching part of me, the fact that you said it came full circle.
Yeah.
You're right. I love teaching. I think it's something that I'll forever do. I'm also a forever learner. I just love information and trying things and learning new things. And as soon as I learn something, I immediately want to teach it. But what I encourage like anyone who is going into a creative field and you're doing your passion, like I keep hearing from many people that you have to have multiple streams of income, which is true, right? You have to be thinking of like, I can't just and with COVID, right?
Sure.
Things are really, I mean, my bridal clients went like, well, sorry, we can't pay you anymore. Like, what do you want us to do? We're not getting married. So, so like that has proven to me that any one part of anyone's business can go away immediately. Like it can just be pulled out from under them. So, multiple streams of income. I really think one of the opportunities for people that are creative or that have a skill, a specialized skill, is teaching. And while that sounds really scary to a lot of people, I just encourage you to like think of teaching in a different way. Perhaps it's not leading a class like a traditional sense, but maybe it means publishing your own ebook or, recording videos and then, selling them, or even just giving back to your community and the people who follow you online, like teaching them a little something. Like all of that's education, right?
Well, I mean, you don't have to convince me. Like I do consulting for people that are like, which I mean, I don't mean to put down consulting, but like consulting is just teaching. Like it really is, because I get people that are like, well, can you help me, start my podcast, or like, what do I need technologically to start a podcast? And I end up knowing the answer. I'm not like, again, I'm reading about, like, I just finished a book on World War II, and I'm going to start a book on space flight. Like nothing I'm really reading is like how to start a podcast in 2021, but I'm doing it. And I know enough things, and I keep my eye, I guess I keep enough eye on the thing that I can be like, yes, no, I can absolutely help you. And I my only like hesitation is I'm horrible at selling myself.
Yeah.
And I mean that literally. Like I can sell myself in an interview for a job.
Sure.
But if you want me to help you, I will. And then like I'm gonna, somebody's gonna be like, why didn't you charge her? I'm sure she would have paid you. And I'd be like,
it's that value question, isn't it?
It goes back to the imposter syndrome, I guess, because like I just never know.
I think actually, not to interrupt your thought,
no, go.
But I've thought a lot about this too. Always a thinker. I've thought a lot about this idea of like, well, why can't creatives charge often enough, right?
Sure. Yeah.
A lawyer has no problem telling you how much their hours are, right? No problem.
None.
A doctor sends their bill or whatever it is, and you pay it. You don't question usually, right? So, but why do any kind of creative too, why do they have such trouble with it? And I think it's because we do really enjoy Like we would choose to do this even if someone didn't pay us. So to put a value on something we also enjoy almost feels like we're cheating. Like when I make lettered pieces, like sure, for a client, like I have to follow the brief or I have to, make sure it aligns to what they want. But ultimately, like when I sit down to do it, I'm actually having a ton of fun. Like I'm enjoying every moment of doing that. But I think that's kind of the magic, and that's where people get envious of people like you or me that like to do what they're doing, and we're just doing it.
I think it goes back to what the expectations were when we were supposed to go to college and get a job. The expectation was never that you're going to love what you do.
That's true.
And
yeah.
I feel like now that we've found that thing we love to do, it's like, well, I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah. Right. I don't want this person to say no and then never get paid for what I'm given. You don't want them to say no, so you don't want to charge them what you think you should make. And yeah, it's this whole back and forth that we do, and it's never going to get better. But having conversations about pricing is something I like to do with people. Try to always think like, this is my business and I have to make money from it. I can't just, I'm not some like rich lady that's just doing this because, I've got all the time in the world. You have to make money to pay for your equipment and, pay for your electricity and, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think times are tough right now, but I think that art and creative businesses are really only going to flourish as we, get better as an economy and just get better health-wise as a nation, right? Like, I think people are going to really want the arts and the creative people and the, the writing, the movies, all of that. People are they're desperately wanting. So I think it's only going to get better with that kind of thing.
There is something special about the conversation Lauren and I just had there. And it is because we are where we are and we have been through what we have been through that we were able to have that conversation at all. We could have had coffee 5 or 10 years ago and not one of the things that came up would have come up. We have in no small way bet on ourselves. But we haven't just bet on ourselves. We have invested in the things we are passionate about. And as you just heard, they weren't always the things we thought they would be. I think that is natural. My writing and this podcast may have been on the periphery all the time, especially with all the time I've spent looking back. But you can't see everything. And even when you can't know what details are important. The point is, when you find that thing to be passionate about, invest in yourself. Don't be closed-minded. Lauren has expanded from calligraphy. I started a blog and grew a brand. We still do those things, but we also do so much more. Don't limit yourself. Your growth is not static. It is as dynamic as you are. And since we're discussing investing in oneself, let's talk about my money issue. It hadn't really occurred to me before Lauren said it, but perhaps it is because I enjoy the work. So that's something that I'll have to think more about. And while I'm at it, and sometimes creative types can burn ourselves out from even our favorite projects, most of the time we love the art and we love the process, and that includes the art of getting lost in thought. I see the art of getting lost in thought as the bottom part of the iceberg that you don't see, while the progress that people see that leads to the finished product is just that top bit. And it's not that it's just a challenge, because it is. Usually something else is wrapped up in the thought process, and in most cases, you usually find those pieces of other inspirations distract you, and you have to just follow that one thread to get that one thing done. That doesn't mean you can't make note of the other things. But it is how most creatives end up with many, many more unfinished projects than you could possibly imagine, and perhaps more than we're comfortable admitting to. But take the time to invest in yourself. It doesn't have to be a means to an end as a career. It could just be, hey, look, I created this, or I did that. But there's a level of accomplishment and pride that is unmatched when it is something you did for you. So, what have you created lately? And if you haven't, what's stopping you? Thank you for listening to the Palmer Files, episode 39. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can tweet me at Agent Palmer and the show at the Palmer Files. You can find Lauren on Instagram at instagram.com/ren.and.ink or on Facebook at facebook.com/ren.and.ink. Plus, I encourage you to visit renandink.com. That's RENANDINK.com to peruse all of her creations. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com. And of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com if there's a topic or guest you'd like me to consider. Okay, Lauren, do you have one final question for me?
So, Sir Palmer, right? Can I call you that? I actually have two questions for you.
Okay.
Is that allowed?
No, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So my first question is, like, we were talking a little bit about teaching and education, and what, like, if I told you you had to teach something, what would it be? And how would you, well, this is all one question. What would it be? And like, how would you gift the world with this one thing?
Okay. So all right. I have one side of my family is teachers.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was a teacher. My mother ended up doing some teaching aside from her consulting. My father's actually done some teaching. My aunt's done teaching. Like my uncle, like everybody on that side of the family is basically like a teacher. And I will tell you, before I get to the topic, it will not be anything less than high school. Because I just don't think I have the patience.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like it would probably be writing in some capacity. I don't know if I have I don't know what the word is, maybe discipline for it to be journalism.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe just like writing, like at like a, high school or like a junior college, because one of the things I don't get a chance to do often is edit for people. And most of the time I'm editing for friends and people I know. So it's not really a challenge, but it is like, okay, I see what you're getting at. How can I make it better so that you sound better? Right. So I feel like it would probably be that. But at the same time, I absolutely love marketing. Like there are just pieces of it that I enjoy. So I could also teach marketing.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of go hand in hand.
I mean, copy, like writing copy for stuff is marketing, right?
Yeah. Although I've never been good. I mean, I know former bosses that have asked me to write copy, and they're like, "You what are you telling a story? Just get it across." It's like, well, and I know that some of them have come around, and times have changed because what a decade ago, content was king, right? Like that was the word around the internet. It was just content is king. And I think that's still the case. I think now more than ever, it's about story. So
yeah,
it's
the storytelling. Yep.
It doesn't have to be written. I mean, this is where audio
Right.
and even video, probably video more than anything, is taken off, right? Like, I mean, look at the average YouTube channel or like Twitch streamer, and the ones who tell stories are the ones that are making the money.
Yeah.
It's not just because like I'm good at a video game. Like it's these people are personalities that tell stories, and the same goes for podcasting, like just storytelling, right? So
Yeah.
I guess it all kind of coalesces. Maybe if there was a class on content creation, like that would be my jam. But I feel like
cool.
that's such that that's super niche. Like maybe like an auxiliary community college would be like, yeah, like a 1 credit like content creation course. We'll let that guy teach it. He seems to have his stuff together. Like
I love it. That's awesome.
so that I guess.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Well, I have another question.
Okay.
That wasn't my 2 questions. It was
good.
kind of like a combined question.
All right.
Okay. So I can letter you 1 quote up to like, I don't know, like 7, like 10 words. What would that quote be?
Whoa.
You had to make the quote like art.
That's
That's a hard one.
It's a hard one because and I've covered this before, but just
wait, someone has asked you this
no.
question?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was gonna say.
What I was going to say was I make meticulous notes when I read books.
Yeah.
You know, and as I've said, but what I have said before is I don't crack the spine, I don't highlight, I don't write in my books. Like I make a digital note and then I go back and
don't loan me a book then.
Okay.
I'm terrible with books.
I'll make sure if I ever loan you, I'll give you the book. That's
Okay.
So I won't get it back, and I won't. But like but I have digital. I would be I don't know if I like all I keep thinking is like I have a Google Doc full of nothing but notes I've taken from books. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure somewhere in there is something, but none of them are succinct. Like most of those things are like sentences or 2 sentences or paragraphs, right? Like I think for like personally, like taking what other people say out, like it would almost be like, don't be afraid to fail. Like, and I hear that from other people, but I think it's a thing that I've started to take to heart more than anything. Like, so I guess it would be don't be afraid to fail. Like
That's awesome.
I can't think of anything else other than I have
I was thinking you'd go with like a movie quote or something.
See, and you know what? I was thinking about it, but like the only other thing I've got is a Post-it note that a friend wrote for me. In the early days of Agent Palmer. When no one knew much about me at all, and then I started like talking on Twitter and like really like becoming a part of podcast communities and stuff. He just wrote Agent Palmer, nerd IRL, hero online, and I was like, well, that's so. I mean, if it wasn't going to be failure is okay, right?
Yeah.
Like then it would probably be like nerd IRL, hero online, because I like to think that while I am the same person, I appear much more confident on the internet.
I love it. Well, those words have meaning to you, right? And that's like what I love about like crafting these like artwork pieces or like making something, drawing the words because they have meaning behind them, right? And they make them extra special. So I think that's cool.